Hey, what's up guys, welcome back to the channel. On today's episode, we're talking about this compact recip saw from Makita, except this is the black edition. We're gonna go over it top to bottom, put it on our test track, get some numbers, stick with us. Alright y'all, I'm just kidding with the black edition. This here is Makita's subcompact recip saw, okay? So Makita has a subcompact lineup. It's kind of in their 18-volt lineup, but they take some of the 18-volt tools, try to make it as compact and light and powerful as possible, and they call it their subcompact lineup, okay? But the reason for it really is that you don't have to leave their 18-volt LXT lineup to kind of get the best of both worlds, right? You kind of have their subcompact lineup using the same batteries, and you can also have like their higher capacity or like heavier duty tools or bigger tools or whatever you want to call them. Anyways, the point is that the model number on this one is XRJ07, and this one right here is their subcompact saw in that, or recip saw in the, their subcompact lineup. So this is a saw that we always go to, for instance, if you have like a small punch list stuff that you want to get done because it's so light and easy to carry around, or if you're cutting like, for instance, small, I don't know, PVC pipes or just something up ahead, you just have to cut a few quick cuts like that, right? So that's obviously the saw that you would go to for something like this. This saw is actually very easy and convenient to use. You can, you can use almost any recip saw one-handed. I don't recommend it, but this saw, it's a little bit easier to use one hand. So if you're in really tight spaces and trying to maneuver around stuff, this is definitely the saw for that, okay? So let's go take a look at the marketing hype, and then we'll bring you in closer and take a better look at it. So this right here is Makita's XRJ07. It is their subcompact brushless reciprocating saw. It has a Makita-built brushless motor that delivers up from 0 to 3,000 strokes per minute with a combined 13/16" stroke length, okay? Has a compact ergonomic design, means it's only 12.5 inches long, weighs in at a whopping 5.7 pounds, and that's with the battery, okay? Ideal for working in tight spaces, has a toolless blade chain system, reinforced fixed shoe for added durability. Keep in mind this is fixed shoe and not adjustable shoe. Has electronic brake, has a built-in LED light, has rubberized grip handles for comfort, uses their XPT extreme protection technology, is equipped with their star protection, to protect against like overloading, discharging, overheating, stuff like that. And they always provide, like on their standard tools, a Makita 3-year warranty, okay? So that's what the marketing hype says. So let's bring you in closer and take a better look at it. All right, so this right here is the left-hand part of the saw if you're holding it at the grip, okay? Nothing too much special going on here, except for what you really got to take away from this is the design, okay? So most reciprocating saws, the motor is really, in a way, in line with the handle right here, right? So it would be like this part, the shaft part, and the shoe, the business part, the motor, and then the handle and the triggers and stuff like that. On this saw, they went from that way, the motor is now down here, right? And then the handle is here. So by taking this motor that would be here, or that would be here, and then putting it down this way, they've made it a little bit more compact, or shortened it in a way, right? So that's what you really got to take away from here, but not too much stuff going on here, just, Makita emblem. It says brushless here. The fins for like air, cooling and stuff are right here, right? So this entire thing is black, so it's going to be a little bit difficult to figure out which parts are rubberized if you're just looking at it, right? If you're holding it, obviously it's easy to tell because, you feel the rubberized stuff. But almost this entire tool, or most of it, has the rubberized feeling, okay? Even the parts that are plastic, like this part right here, is almost all plastic right here, but the handles all rubberized. The top parts, which are mostly plastic, have like a rubberized feeling to it. But this entire front part right here is a rubberized like overmold, at least this half part is, and this part right here is really more like a case, or like a encasement of a silicone like grip or something like that, okay? But it's rubberized, and we've used it quite a bit. It's gotten wet, it's been cutting wet pipes and stuff like that, hasn't had any issues. But this part right here is a rubber overmold, and it works really well. I will tell you, under like heavy use, this part will get really warm pretty fast if you're doing a lot of heavy stuff. But like I said, it's a subcompact saw, so if you're doing that, then you're probably not using the right tool for the job. The point is, it's a pretty nice feeling saw, and because the weight is more positioned downwards, it's it's balanced pretty well, but if you're not used to, you know, ever using it, you're gonna feel a little bit weird because, you know, the weight of the recip saw is a little bit more here now instead of like up top here. So just keep that in mind. Anyways, the point is, this is the left-hand part of the saw, not too much going on. Back part of the saw, standard Makita grip. If you use Makita tools, there's really nothing to it that you're gonna feel pretty much right at home, okay? This part right here is the right-hand part of the saw, which is pretty much the same part as the left-hand part, okay? Not too much going on here. On most recip saws at this point, there would be a rafter hook somewhere right here on the right-hand side. On this subcompact saw, there is no rafter hook, and it probably doesn't need to be because you're probably not using this up on a rafter or on a ladder. Actually, you're probably using it on a ladder because we've used it a lot of times on a ladder, but no rafter hook, okay? Just make sure you keep that in mind. So before we go to the business part of it, let's go ahead and talk about the top. Not too much going on the top. It does have a lockout button, right? So if you push it from the right or the left side to the right side, it's locked out. If you push it from left to right, it is engaged, okay? And it is not a 2-speed design. It's really just lock or unlock. The trigger here is a 1-finger trigger, okay? So like in the XRJ06 video, that was a 2-finger trigger. Actually, I think on most of the Makita saws that we have, I think are 2-finger triggers. But this one right here is a single trigger, and there's, like I said, no band selection. It is variable speed, and it's a nice, you know, standard Makita variable speed all the way through, so you don't have too much going on there. But I did want to point out, it is literally just one, what do you call it, 1-finger trigger going on there, okay? So moving around to the business part of the saw, this here obviously is the shoe. This shoe, like I said, is fixed. It does not come out, it does not retract in. For this saw, I don't really have a problem with that because on this saw, you're almost always using like the short blades, right? The 4-inch blades or the 6-inch blades, mainly because, you know, it's like you're cutting small stuff, right? If you have a long blade on it, you're kind of, you know, you've increased the length of the tool or whatnot, right? So don't really have a problem with this on this saw. The other thing to note on here is it uses the same type of blade change mechanism as it does on, you know, pretty much all their other larger saws, right? So the blade change mechanism, knuckle, lock, whatever you want to call it, is pretty much the same. It's got this rubberized part here that, you know, you turn and it stays open, or the knuckle stays unlocked, and it works by, you know, you take a blade, you stick it in here and you press it and it will lock. And we've never had an issue with any of the Makita saws and the blades unlocking, okay? In order to get it out, all you do is turn this mechanism this way, and if the blade is really long, it'll pop out or just fall out. If you have like a short blade, sometimes it'll kind of hang in there and you can pull it out, okay? But it doesn't get stuck by any means, and it doesn't have like a spring load system that like shoots the blade either, okay? So this actually works pretty well. Have never had any issues with this, and this is actually really nice, mainly because even if the head does protrude in, as you can see here, it's carved out quite a bit, such that when it is in, you can still reach it and then, you know, mess with it even with gloves on. So that right there is pretty convenient. Let me show you that one more time. Right, no issues, and like you see, it went in, just knock it out, right? No problem. The other thing I note about this here is right up top here is an LED light, which is obviously very helpful because if you are cutting, let's say like a little pipe or something like that, up in the attic or, you know, upwards like this, obviously very simple to have that. A lot of people will say it's a gimmick, but it actually does really help, especially if you're in a tight spot, okay? Battery really goes in here like this, and see, there is the LED light, okay? So let's go ahead and show you the saw a little bit in motion, quite a bit. Safety first, take the battery out, put the blade in, right? And it doesn't have, it's not a forcible thing. You don't have to push it too hard. Even if the head is out a little bit, you can just slide in a little bit. Sometimes you press it hard, it'll fall back, okay? So here's the LED light, right? And let's take a look at the variable speed going on here. So as you can tell, it doesn't really have that long stroke, and with that subcompact design, it can't really get that full like 1 inch or 1 1/4 or 1 1/8 inch stroke, right? This one right here has a 13/16 inch stroke, okay? So it's not even 1 inch, and that's okay because you're really only just cutting small stuff, and this is designed for compact stuff. But I definitely did want to point that out. So if you look later on when we pop up the information and stuff, it has 3,000 strokes per minute. So if you take these 3,000 strokes per minute multiplied by that, how much it's stroking, right, length and cutting, make sure when we take a look at numbers that, you know, that number's obviously going to be lower, and there's a reason why it won't perform generally as well. So just keep that in mind. Get the blade out, pop it out just like that. So that's what you really get with this saw. Now it's time to go ahead and put it on the track. I hope y'all caught those numbers because those numbers did not go by really fast, okay? So let's go ahead and recap. So the run with a 5 amp hour battery, first run comes in at 23.44, second run comes in at 24.05, third run comes in at 23.25, and then the fourth run comes in at 22.32, okay? The average of the 4 runs comes in right around 23.27, okay? So with the score of 23.27, this saw is currently in last place on the leaderboard, okay? So 23.27 puts it pretty much behind the Milwaukee Super Sawzall 2722 with a 5 amp hour battery, which is almost 2 times faster than this saw with a score of 13.87, okay? So let's go ahead and see what happens when you run it with a 2 amp hour battery, because the subcompact saw is really designed to be used with a lighter battery. We just wanted to see if a higher amperage battery delivered any additional power. So with a 2 amp hour battery, the first run comes in at 23.52, second run comes in at 22.30, third run comes in at 25.10, and the fourth run comes in at 23.57. If you average those 4 runs out, the average comes out to 23.62, okay? So with a score of 23.62, now this saw with the 2 amp hour battery is actually in last place, just right behind the saw with a 5 amp hour battery, okay? So what did performance gain did we really get? Like 0.27 to 0.62. You could argue with that, with the, you know, law of averages and stuff like that, that's a little bit of performance gain, but I mean, you could really say it's really all within the margin of error, okay? So pretty much what that determines is this saw is not a super power hungry saw, okay? So you do not get a huge benefit from jumping between like higher capacity batteries, right? So like you said, like we said, went from 2.0 to the 5.0, we got maybe like what, 0.3-ish, maybe 0.3 something out of it. Which is not a huge difference, right? It's not like the super Sawzall or like the bigger, heavier duty saws. Those are just like power hungry saws, right? The more power you give, obviously, the more performance it'll get. In this case, subcompact, it's not designed for power. It's more designed for convenience, tight spaces, lightweight, and stuff like that. So if you're going to use this saw, you could pretty much use it with a 2.0 or even maybe a 1.5 amp hour battery to kind of keep it lightweight or whatnot, and you would gain pretty much the maximum performance out of this saw, okay? So just make sure you keep that in mind. So what can we say about the saw? It's a great saw. I mean, we obviously don't use it all the time, but there are many times you do reach for it, right? Obviously, you wouldn't reach for this cutting like headers or anything big like that, but if you're cutting anything overhead or in tight spaces or stuff like that, this would probably be the saw you want to go for, mainly because it's light, okay? The saw with a 2 amp hour battery is lighter than most saws, like just bare tool, all right? So there's that. The other thing to talk about here is the design of this one is vastly different than other one-handed or compact type saws, right? So we all know there's those saws that, you know, that you're designed to kind of use one-handed an angle, right? Like that, where the motor is still designed a little bit like this, but it's more in line with it. So with that being said, I personally prefer using this type of design rather than that type of design, mainly because it feels more comfortable to use this, right? If you are to put more pressure or two-handed, it just feels more natural versus the one you have to hold at like, you know, a little bit of an angle and kind of put like an awkward force a little bit. We're just nitpicking at stuff, but I'm just saying personal preference, I would definitely prefer something like this because it just feels a little bit more traditional, okay? It doesn't have all the bells and whistles like all the big saws primarily do, but in a subcompact saw, you probably don't need that, right? I mean, you could use this saw for cutting like EMT or like Unistrut or Super Strut, stuff like that. I mean, it's like designed for like smaller jobs, right? So anyways, one place we use this a lot is for cutting like PVC pipes or anything like that overhead. So anyways, the point is that it's a good saw. Is it the saw for you? I don't know. You're gonna have to go figure that out, right? So like I said, in all the videos, performance numbers are great, but this just really gives you an idea of the performance of the saw. Whether or not the saw is a good saw for you, you're gonna have to figure that out, right? And don't basically buy a tool based on this only based on this performance. Obviously, it's probably a factor that factors into it, but don't do it primarily because it's a performance number, okay? I mean, with this saw, probably don't need to say that too much because it's currently in last place and no one goes out and looks for the slowest tool on the market, right? But anyways, That's what you get with this really subcompact Makita Sawzall or recip saw. I hope this video's helped you guys out. If you have any questions, definitely let me know. If not, have a great day, and we'll see you guys next time.